thing here, but nobody's any better at this than you are.
Have fun, take a deep breath.
Give him hell at the end. Good luck to you.
Fight like hell like we do every week. You are the best here.
Brett, be affirmative.
You told me to get on.
Info. Ready. Ready. Go slow. Green, green, green. Lock it down, lock it down. 14.
I'm destroyed, and I just got drove through like 6 times on the 14th. So, busy thinking. That is the stupidest thing I've seen in my career. Literally.
Everything you described is accurate. Haven't even finished the second stage yet. Half the field's wrecked.
Hell yeah.
11 got it. Rowdy there, Mac. Good job, pal. Thanks, man. Good job all day. Great work, my man. Great work.
Keep putting yourself in position, we'll win our share, right? We got one back today, brother. Good job.
Therefore, great job, guys.
And welcome back to Racing in the Draft for a whole new season of Racing DFS, NASCAR, all the fun stuff. What's up, Wyatt? How's your 2.5 to 3 months of rest and relaxation been getting into the start of this new season? Should be quite exciting. So far, the first couple races have been quite entertaining, to say the least. But good to see Wyatt here. Hopefully we get some more people joining in as we get into the stream. I had a quiet off season. It sucked. Ready for some NASCAR, baby. Yes, I absolutely agree. I'm right there with you, Wyatt. I'm ready for some more NASCAR. We've had 3 days of pretty good, entertaining racing. I can't say it was the best racing, but it was been entertaining to say the least. The first dual race was quite exciting. The second one, not as exciting. But then Trucks, Xfinity, and ARCA have all provided lots of carnage, to say the least. Hopefully tomorrow is... I mean, I don't root for carnage, but I definitely root for some issues up front to get the guys from the back. But that's pretty much always been the case at Daytona, Talladega, and kind of at Atlanta too. But either way, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Appreciate Wyatt being here. Hopefully some of our other fellow DFSers will join in for this stream. It's the first one of the season of 2025, and let's get it rolling. But before we get to this week's Daytona 500, let's go back and look at Joey Logano's championship winning weekend at Phoenix. I can barely even remember it. I'm not a Logano fan per se, but he did get his third championship. These were the optimal lineups from Phoenix last year. I always cover it, and it is what it is. It's well in the past at this point. So let's just get into the current stuff, since I can't really remember exactly what happened at Phoenix all that well to begin with. Daytona 500. Daytona is one of the older tracks on the circuit. It is a 2.5-mile super speedway with 31 degrees of banking. The race length for tomorrow's race is 200 laps. I don't know where Family Man is. I mean, he might still be digging out from all the snow that he got down in Louisiana earlier this year, or he might be trying to avoid tornadoes tonight. I don't think the tornadoes are actually getting that far south, but I mean, you want to talk about weather. We've had 2 rounds of snow here, nothing quite like what Family Man had, but today we've had like 1.5 inches of rain. And then tomorrow we're expecting to have winds of 50 to 60 miles an hour and thunderstorms here in the Richmond area. So I'm just hoping that I don't have to watch the Daytona 500 on my phone, or not having to start up the generator. But it definitely can be a possibility tomorrow. It's been 38 degrees and rain all day today. It's almost been miserable. No, you're good. I appreciate you tuning in, Wyatt. Please chime in as much as you want. But yeah, Family Man, I mean, I think he might be here. I talked to him last week I had to get my HVAC replaced here at the house, and he's a HVAC specialist. So if anybody's looking for HVAC work in Louisiana, definitely hit up Family Man. But our race length is 200 laps, Dominator points of 140, 50 coming from laps led, and 90 coming from fast laps. And as you will begin to find out, that really won't come into play. It never does at Talladega or Daytona. And for the most part, Atlanta, I think Atlanta we will see some changes at Atlanta this year. Not necessarily anything that NASCAR did or didn't do. It's just the age of the track and where it's located. The track will begin to race more like a Michigan, is my guess. But when we're comparing tracks, you can still look back at the last 6 races at Atlanta, Daytona, and Talladega. Those are all the next-gen era car and new configurations for Atlanta. Optimal lineups from previous races at Daytona for the past 2 years. 2 years. I didn't label that right. That's supposed to be spring of 24 and fall of 24 at the top. There's my mess up. I always have one, even though I had 2.5 months to get this thing figured out before we went live. But as you can see, 0 dominators from the fall race, 0 dominators from the Daytona 500 last year. The best starting spot in the optimal lineup was 20th. Everything came starting further back from that. Now, of course, finishing position definitely played into it, but I mean, you can look at this. I mean, you got Cody Ware, Harrison Burton, Carson Hocevar, and Parker Retzlaff in the optimal lineup. It's just, that's what happens at Daytona. They have some big wrecks. It's not necessarily big wrecks. If you start, 5th and you fall to 15th, somebody who started 37th finishes 11th is going to get more points. And I've actually got a chart to kind of show this, and we can kind of compare this as we go to kind of see what somebody needs to get better. So let's just do a prime example. Let's say somebody starts 9th, they finish 3rd, they have 5 fast laps, and they led 5 laps. It's only 15.5 points. Well, if somebody goes and starts 30th and finishes 10th, I can't put 0, so they led 1 lap. They're going to beat that person, even finishing in 10th, by 6 points. So we'll kind of continue to refer back to that as the night wears on to kind of really show that taking cars from the back and not in the top 10 is really the ideal way of setting up your lineups for this weekend. And as we look at last year's Daytona 500, once again, 18th was the highest starting spot for the optimal lineup. And it's not necessarily all the big names. I mean, you got names that we all recognize. You got Gregson, AJ, Byron, Wallace, Kyle Busch, and Corey LaJoie. So, I mean, they're names that you know, but they're not the Kyle Larsons. They're not the Denny Hamlins. They're not the guys that are starting in the top 10. And once again, we look at the fall race from 2023. We did have 2 drivers that started 11th and 12th. They still gained over 10 spots of position and made the optimal lineup. And then in the 2023 Daytona 500, Chris Buescher starting in 9th. It's the first time we've seen somebody from the top 10 starting spot out of 4 of the last 4 Daytona races that have made the optimal lineup. And he had to lead 32 laps to get to that. What's going to be your cutoff mark? 20th or so? No. I think I've always kind of started with, I don't take anybody in the top 10. Starting from about 11th place on back, I'll start to progress people in. So when I run my lineups, I run anywhere from 40 to 80 lineups, depending on how many 20 max tournaments I get into. I'm typically a tournament player. I don't play very much cash games. So most of this is based on tournament lineups, not cash lineups. And those do get built a little bit differently. You don't take as big of a risks, even though at Daytona, I'm not even sure what you would even set up for a cash lineup. It's just so chaotic, and you've got a much larger pool of people that can potentially make the optimal lineup. I mean, like the 2023 Daytona 500, you have Travis Pastrana, Riley Herbst, are in there, and they were $4,700 and $5,000. You wouldn't typically put somebody that low into a cash lineup. So, but yes, I typically don't take anything single digit, and then from about 11 through 15, the percentage is really low. It's single digit percentage that I'll put them in the field. Once we get past 15th place and on, especially if it's a Ryan Blaney, Denny Hamlin. Denny has not been good in the next gen era at Super Speedways, but a Ryan Blaney, a Joey Logano, if he happens to be starting, in the teens, in pretty much any of the Ford, Penske type drivers, you can take them lower than 20 because they typically are going to finish in the top 5. So that's just kind of my measure that I go with. But I mean, as we've seen, it's anybody's race. Anybody can win this race. I mean, heck, Helio Castroneves almost won the ARCA race today after having a wrecked race car. So it's Daytona. It's who's going to be there at the line when the white flag or checkered flag flies, depending on what happens during that last lap. If you happen to watch the Xfinity race, I think Jesse Love probably took the white flag, and he probably should have won the race. But I've seen Daytona races where they have said that the leader did not take the white flag before the yellow light came out. That one was a real close call, and that was kind of like, I don't know. But these are some just examples of the last 4 races at Daytona, and it just kind of shows what the optimal lineups look like, and really not taking drivers that are starting in the top 10, and not really even in the teens. So Wyatt, yes, you're not too far off by saying 20th is kind of the cutoff, but I don't want to just shut the door on, I don't know, we'll get into it in a second. I've got too many different lineups, but here's a prime example. This is a place differential chart with the points, and it's probably really hard to see, especially if you happen to be looking on a phone because it's even small from my screen. But this really kind of shows if you start in first and finish in first, with nothing else said, you're going to get 45 points. Well, if you start 40th and finish first, it's 84 points. It's 39 points greater just from place differential. So this is kind of an interesting chart on, if you start in 15th and finish in 15th, it's 28 points, or 26 or 28. It's a little tough to read, but that's why I kind of made this little cheat sheet here. It makes it much easier, and you can actually put some fast laps and things in. And here's kind of the breakdown of the top 15 in DraftKings points from their starting positions. All of last year, the fall race, we had nobody in the top 10 even make the top 15 in points. And realistically, for optimal lineups, you're looking for the top 6. So this really shows that even the top 15, nobody started in the top 10. And in the Daytona 500, we had 2 cars that started 6th through 10th and 1 that started in the top 5. Most of it came from 11th on back for both of those races. The Daytona 500 in 2023, we had more drivers make it into the top 15 in points, but that doesn't mean it was actually making it into the optimal lineup. But if you can get 6 drivers that all make it in the top 15, typically in a tournament, you're going to cash. And that's just kind of been the cutoff that I've kind of found, that if you can get all 6 of your drivers that all finish in the top 15 in DraftKings points, typically you're going to at least get your money back and typically win some. So that's kind of why I look at this chart. So if we're looking over here at where people are starting, and we'll get to the driver-by-driver breakdown in just one moment, but this kind of goes through the top 5 starting spots. Of course, Chase Briscoe got the pole. I have him ranked 39th because, I mean, the pole sitter almost has never finished in the top 15 in points, much less in the optimal lineup. They'd have to lead 100 laps to really start making optimal lineups. And this isn't the Xfinity Series, and Austin Hill's not racing in this race. So that's the only time that really ever comes into play. That guy is just unbelievable at Super Speedways. So that's why William Byron, even starting in 5th, is ranked 13th in my ranking system. And the way I rank my drivers is it's based on a huge array of data points. It takes into account the last 5 races at Daytona. It takes into account the last 4 races at Atlanta, 4 races at Talladega, 4 races at Daytona, and it also takes the trend line, which I still go back and even use last year's trend line to kind of base it into this. Some of those drivers were not necessarily driving in the Cup Series, but basically your top stars are. So I still use the trend line. Then I look at practice. Talladega and Daytona practice doesn't matter because you can't get a true feel of what a one car is doing compared to another because they're drafting. Sometimes they're leading a pack. Sometimes they're coming from about a half a second back and have a full head of steam getting up to speed when they're drafting up to somebody, which throws and skews the data. So I don't use practice speeds at all for these super speedways. I don't really look at fast laps because, like I said, it's so skewed because it all is dependent on who you're drafting with. Are you pushing? Are you being conservative? There are too many variables to really get a true sense on the speed of a particular car. But then if we look through, the 6 through 10, once again, Joey Logano is the only one that even sniffs the top 10 in my ranking systems. And it's really, Joey Logano and the Penske guys and the Fords are really good at super speedways, or at least they were last year. And all indications, watching the dual races, which is a better indicator of how things may turn out, except for when we get to the Daytona 500, you've got 40 cars out there instead of 22 or 23. And it's much easier for somebody to make a mistake or a tire to get cut down, and you take out a third of the field, which always tends to happen, and that's why they call it the big one. So you can start to see, once we get to 11 through 20, we've got the Christopher Bell, Ryan Blaney, Chase Elliott making the top 10 in my ranking system. Once you really get into the 30 plus, that's really where the weight really starts to come in. Because we've also got an Alex Bowman, a Brad Keselowski. Both of them run really well at Daytona. Martin Truex Jr., who does not typically, he's never won a Daytona race, but he typically ends up having a decent race. Daniel Suarez won the Atlanta race last year, raced at Daytona fall race very well. Zane Smith, all these guys are coming from the back, mostly because they had really bad qualifying races or got wrecked in the dual qualifying race on Thursday. They're having to go to a backup car or making repairs, and they just didn't finish well. Andrew, what's up, buddy? Think they will get the full race in tomorrow. I know they pushed it up for the threat of rain. Yes. They will do everything they can because it is the Daytona 500. It is the crown jewel. It is the Super Bowl for NASCAR. They do everything in their power to get an entire race in. with that being said, and it's also Florida. You get pop-up showers there almost on a daily basis. So, and they've got, I don't know how many track dryers they've got, but they can dry a 2.5 mile track. They can have it dried and ready to go racing again in like 90 minutes. So, and Daytona doesn't have necessarily a cutoff time, like a curfew or noise ordinance. Because number one, it's next to an Air Force base, so planes are always taking off, and Daytona is Daytona. That this weekend is one of their biggest moneymakers, so they know that let's not upset the apple cart. I mean, that's really one of their big moneymakers of the year is the Daytona 500, and then the other race at Daytona. So the city works with them very, very well. But either way, this is the top 15 chart that I always look at for each race. It kind of gives me an indication of really kind of where I need to hone in and look. And it really, I mean, because I've done this long enough, but this is much more of a chance for anybody that's new, that's wanting to jump into the DFS part of NASCAR, because all of a sudden they realized, oh, football's gone. What am I going to do now? Let's try out NASCAR. This is a chance to kind of explain what you're kind of trying to hone in for. Now, Atlanta next week is going to be very similar, but then we get to some regular tracks and everything will invert itself and go back to normal. This is my practice sheet. I did not fill it out for this week. This has nothing to do, this was Phoenix, but this will get filled out again for not Atlanta, but I guess Phoenix. I don't know where we go. Phoenix or Las Vegas. It's Phoenix, Las Vegas, then Miami Homestead. We'll have practice laps. All right, let's get into our driver by driver breakdown. We've got 41 drivers, the largest field we've had, and I don't even remember how long. They cut the field to 40. God, I think it was like 2015 or 2014 since we had 43 drivers. It's now been 40 drivers. It was the max field. But this year they gave the inclusion of if you are a superstar driver from another series coming over to race in NASCAR on a one-off, you're guaranteed a spot. Well, Helio Castroneves is a superstar from the Indy series after winning a couple of Indy 500s, wanting to come over and try his shot at a Daytona 500. Well, he wrecked in the qualifying race, but he already knew that he was guaranteed a spot in the Daytona 500 because of this inclusion rule, or provisional rule. So we now have 41 drivers. So we actually, as far as DraftKings goes, DraftKings only pays out 40 spots. So if you happen to be the 41st driver, you will not get any points for a finishing position, where if you finish 40th, you at least get 1 point. So if you start 40th, finish 40th, you don't lose any place differential, you'll get 1 point for at least competing in the race. Well, now if you start 41st, if Helio finishes 41st, he'll get 0 points. I mean, who knows? Helio might finish 41st. He also could finish 5th. Heck, he could win this damn thing. It's really up to anybody. But let's go over this page real quick. So when we're looking at this week and future weeks, it starts with what races we're comparing to when we look at this line here, which is the color coding matching. This is the last 5 races at Daytona. And in those 5 races at Daytona, Denny Hamlin has no top 5s, no top 10s, and 2 top 20s. That's what these 3 numbers indicate. He has a 21.8 DraftKings average for those 5 races, and he has a 25th place average finish. The last race we had here was the fall Daytona race, which was the cutoff race going into the playoffs. Denny Hamlin finished 38th in that race. Typically, we would have practice in here, but I'm not putting any practice data in, so no need to worry about that. And he is starting 8th, and this is his price for DraftKings. And then the full history is this bottom line down here. Denny Hamlin has 38 total starts at Daytona. He's got 3 wins. Once again, none of them in the next-gen era car, which is the last 3 years. 11 top 5s, 12 top 10s, and 22 top 20s, and a 17.7 average finish. So that's Denny Hamlin. Oh, and up here on the top right, he is ranked 30th. And once again, I base that on all the different algorithm data points that I've put into spreadsheets. And we discussed that earlier. And he comes up with a rank of 30th. It's very heavily weighted on starting positions. So most of the guys that are starting in the top 10 will not have a very good rank. And the guys that are starting 30th or worst will have a much better rank. It's pretty simple when it comes to super speedways. Kyle Larson, next in line here at 9,900. He is starting 22nd. And I put an asterisk here. The asterisk is he did wreck his car in the dual race, the qualifying race. So he has had to go to a backup car. So they pretty much put the car that he raced in the duels on the trailer, sent it back to Charlotte, and he got a brand new car out. With that being said, starting 22nd, he will start somewhere in the 30s, but DraftKings keeps his starting spot as 22nd. Now, at Daytona, that's not really going to matter a whole lot because of how these cars draft and the strategies that are all involved. You can start 41st and still end up winning this race without too tough of a time. You can draft your way to the front. You can pitch strategy your way to the front. And, of course, Carnage could easily, if you miss all the big wrecks, you could easily be in the top 5. So I am not necessarily concerned if somebody goes to a backup car and has to go start the race in the rear, because as we'll see, there's lots of cars that are having to do that. So I'm not overly concerned. It's much more of a, hey, Kyle Larson is going to a backup car. But in the last 5 races at Daytona, he's about as good as Denny. Denny and Kyle take a lot of chances and run up front a lot, and a lot of times the carnage starts there and works its way through the field when the big wreck happens. So Kyle Larson has not fared well. He's never won in a super speedway race. But in the last 5 races at Daytona, he's only got 2 top 20s, no top 10s, a 5.8 DraftKings average, which is really bad. Until I think last year's Daytona race, he was actually a negative DraftKings average. So he's actually gotten his average up. He's got an average finish of 22.8, and he finished 21st in the fall race at Daytona last year. He's got 21 total starts at Daytona with no wins, no top 5s, 0 top 5s ever at Daytona for Kyle Larson. 4 top 10s out of 21 starts, and 9 out of 21 starts he's finished in the top 20 with a 22.6 average finish. So, more likely Kyle Larson's starting spot's where he's going to finish. So, but he does have some place differential. He always tends to end up being up front. If he can just miss the big one, maybe, just maybe, Kyle can get himself a top 5. But he came in ranked 8th on my ranking system. Ryan Blaney, 9,700, who does have a win here at Daytona. He's starting 16th. In the last 5 races here, he's got no top 5s, 1 top 10, 2 top 20s, a 12.6 DraftKings average, and a 23.6 average finish. Man, our 3 highest priced guys have a 22nd or worse average finish. Ryan Blaney finished 29th here in the fall race last year. He's got 19 total starts. Like I said, he does have 1 win in those 19 starts, 4 top 5s, 7 top 10s, and 10 top 20s with a 19.7 average finish. He's starting in 16th. The one plus side that Ryan Blaney does have going for him, he's part of Penske. Penske and the Fords last year on Super Speedways were really, really good. And Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, and Austin Cindric are really, really good teammates with each other at these super speedways. They have each other's back and they stick together the entire time. That's good or bad, but you need drafting partners and you need drafting help at these super speedways. Well, here's his teammate Joey Logano, 9,600, starting in 10th, so starting a little bit further up than Ryan Blaney. But Joey Logano's averages over the last 5 races at Daytona: 2 top 5s, 2 top 10s, 3 top 20s, a 21.6 DraftKings average with a 16.4 average finish. He did finish 31st in the fall race at Daytona last year. He's got 32 total starts with 1 win, 8 top 5s, 11 top 10s, 18 top 20s, and an 18th place average finish. And when you start looking at it, that's actually a pretty good average finish for Daytona. So just keep that in mind. Chase Elliott is starting in 17th. His price tag is $9,500 on DraftKings. And in the last 5 races at Daytona, 1 top 5, 1 top 10, 2 top 20s, a whopping 7.0 DraftKings average, and that's with a top 5 finish. And a 24.2 average finish, and that's with a top 5 finish. Yeah, so his other races have been miserable. He finished 36th here in the fall race last year. 18 total starts with only 3 top 5s, 5 top 10s, and 9 top 20s. 21.3 average finish. Yeah, if you get an average finish inside the top 20, you're doing something pretty good at Daytona. If you've got a decent sample size. There's some drivers out there that don't have a huge sample size, and their average finish is a little bit better. But either way, he's coming in ranked 7th on my ranking system. Kyle Busch, 9,300, starting in 21st. So we've got some place differential potential here with Kyle Busch because, as we see in the last 5 races at Daytona, 1 top 5, 3 top 10s, 5 top 20s, a 10th place average finish in the last 5 races at Daytona with a 46.1 DraftKings average, and he finished 2nd here in the fall race behind Harrison Burton. He's got 39 total starts, only 1 win at Daytona, but does not have the elusive Daytona 500 win yet. Maybe tomorrow might be his lucky day. 9 top 5s, 13 top 10s, 24 top 20s, and an 18.1 average finish. Like I said, anything in the top 20 on an average finish, that's actually pretty good. He does come in ranked 10th on my ranking system. I do not mind taking a little bit of Kyle Busch, even though he's starting 21st. So, Brad Keselowski, $9,200, starting 34th. Now, here we've got the 2 asterisks. Brad Keselowski did have damage. They opted not to go to a backup car, but the damage was severe enough that he had to change too many parts and pieces. He will still have to drop to the rear, but it wasn't so severe they had to go to a backup car. I don't know what that entails, but either way, he's going to have to drop to the rear, but he's starting 34th. So he realistically is probably going to start 34th because there's so many different cars going to the rear. Once again, it really doesn't matter at Daytona. In the last 5 races here at Daytona, Brad's got 1 top 5, 2 top 10s, 2 top 20s, a 22.5 DraftKings average, and a 20th place average finish. He finished 8th here in the fall race last year. 31 total starts with 1 win, 4 top 5s, 8 top 10s, 13 top 20s, and once again, 22.4 average finish. Outside the 20s, or not any better than 20th average finish. William Byron, $9,000, your Daytona 500 winner from last year. Not the fall race, but the actual Daytona 500. Is starting in 5th. He does have that 1 win from the Daytona 500 last year. 1 top 5, 2 top 10s, 2 top 20s, 21.8 DraftKings average, and a 20.8 average finish. He finished 27th in the fall race. And 14 total starts, 2 wins here at Daytona, 3 top 5s, 4 top 10s, 4 top 20s. And once again, 23.2 average finish. I'm telling you, average finishes are all going to be in the 20s. There are a few that sneak up, like Chris Buescher. He is starting in 6th. 8,900. He does have 1 win here at Daytona. It was a fall race of 22 2, I think he won. 2 top in the last 5 races at Daytona. It's pretty good odds, pretty good stats. 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s, 4 top 20s, a 35.3 DraftKings average, and a 12th place average finish. He's getting real close to the Kyle Busch numbers there. Finished 10th here in the fall race last year, 18 total starts. He does have a 17.4 average finish for 18 total starts. So pretty good drafter. The problem is he's starting in 6th. So for DraftKings purposes, that doesn't bode real well for what I'm looking for. So he comes in right to 20th. Christopher Bell, $8,800, starting in 20th. This is the first driver with some decent average finishes and pretty consistent top 5s and top 10s. Starting closer to where I would like to see somebody for DraftKings. So starting in 20th, he's got 3 top 5s, 3 top 10s, 4 top 20s in the last 5 races here at Daytona with a 12.2 average finish. Pretty good. He finished 3rd here in the fall race last year. 10 total starts at Daytona with those 3 top 5s, 3 top 10s, but 7 top 20s with a 17.1 average finish. Not too shabby. Good on Christopher Bell. I do like Christopher Bell. And just like the Penske's, the Joe Gibbs drivers in previous years have drafted really, really well with each other. And Toyota as a group also do a really good job of running together as a team. Bubba Wallace being one of those drivers from Toyota. He's not with Joe Gibbs, but he is with a sister company, 2311. $8,800 for Bubba Wallace, starting in 3rd. That's the downfall, Bubba, from winning his dual race on Thursday. He gets to start close to the front, which means I don't have a whole lot of interest because it's just really tough to get enough DraftKings points that far up. But the stats are really good. 1 top 5, 2 top 10s, 5 top 20s, 43.1 DraftKings average, which is one of the highest DraftKings averages we've seen yet. 10.8 average finish. Finished 6th in the fall race last year. 15 total starts with an 11.6 average finish. So far, that's the best average finish we've seen yet with a decent sample size. So Bubba Wallace is actually really good at super speedway races. So if you're looking maybe to place a bet, maybe Bubba Wallace finishing a top 5 or a top 10 might be the better way to go if you're wanting to put Bubba in some type of a lineup. So, but with that being said, starting in 3rd, I don't have a whole lot of interest. There's just not enough place differential. I mean, we can just, here, we'll go to our little simple chart. Starting in 3rd. So, okay, we'll go here. We'll have him start 3rd, and we'll even have him finish in 3rd. And let's say 5 fast laps is actually probably about the average. And let's say he leads even 10 laps. All right, well, I mean, right now, this 30th place driver who had 5 laps and led 1 lap, but that 0.25 is not going to really make that big of a difference. But let's say this person even finishes 15th. Where's 15th? Here, let's see. Oop. Oh, do I not have 15th as an option? All right, let's say 14th. Well, the guy starting in 30th to finish his 14th is going to beat Bubba Wallace starting in 3rd, finishing in 3rd, and leading 10 laps by 1.75 points. Or 1.25, 2.25, whatever it is. Still beats him. Starting 30th and finishing 14th. Not even in the top 10. It's simple math. It's hard to wrap your brain around. It took me forever. I mean, I've been doing DraftKings NASCAR stuff for, I don't know, since it started. And I always just like, well, no, it's got to be the guys that finished in the top 10. Well, no, place differential pays that much. And there's just, because the fast laps and the laps led are spread out amongst everybody, yeah, it just doesn't pay to starting by the top 10. Or probably even 11th. Tyler Reddick, $8,600, starting in 11th. I don't know. Let's see. Let's pull this down. Let's say you start 11th, but finished 3rd, but you only led 2 laps. That does beat the 30th to 14th. So that's why I kind of like this little chart. It's kind of neat. You can kind of play around and see, well, all right, what happens if? So, but if he finishes in 5th, now we're almost dead even again. So, kind of fun. I do enjoy that. But Tyler Reddick starting in 11th, $8,600. Has one top 5, one top 10, one top 20 out of the last 5 races here at Daytona with a 24.6 average finish. He finished 28th in the fall race. Tyler Reddick has not really been that good at Super Speedway races. And he's starting in 11th. So I don't have a whole lot of interest here with Tyler Reddick. I think he's just starting too far off. You know, could he be potentially in the top 15 in points? Maybe. Is he going to make the optimal lineup? Very doubtful. So, not a whole lot of interest there. Ryan Preece. $8,400. And I guess I should have really done this because this is negative, but oops. This is negative 6.4 DraftKings average. In the last 5 races, he has no top 20s. 32.3 DraftKings average. He got involved in every wreck there was possible. So even starting 27th, my algorithm just killed him. I would actually say Ryan Preece is maybe somebody you could potentially take because of his starting spot. But his averages have been crud lately. Now, he is in a new car. He's not with RFK anymore. No, I'm sorry. He's not with Stuart Haas anymore. He's now with RFK. So he's got Chris Buescher and Brad Keselowski's teammates. Maybe that does a little bit better. RFK does a little bit better at the Super Speedways, as we saw just recently, looking at Brad Keselowski and Chris Buescher. But, I mean, you just have to look at history, and history doesn't look too bright on Ryan Preece, even starting in 27th. I'm not saying he's an absolute no-go because his starting spot is enough, but it definitely could be a little interesting. Anybody else new out there, I appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. I just got over that 100 subscriber mark last year and looking to build on that this year. So if you have a second, hit that like and subscribe button. We're here every Saturday of the NASCAR weekend because sometimes there's a Saturday race. Sometimes it's a Sunday night race, and I'm able to do it Sunday at noon or 1. But typically, we're here somewhere between 9 and 10 o'clock on Saturday nights talking NASCAR DFS. So hit that like and subscribe button and join us every Saturday with your questions, thoughts, concerns, and whatever about NASCAR or DFS. Alex Bowman, 8,200. And on occasions, you'll hear me go into full-on rants about NASCAR. And sometimes you'll hear me praise it, but a lot of times it's rants. We're talking Daytona 500 this week. We won't get into the whole 2311 and Front Row Motorsports lawsuit and NASCAR. We'll save that for another night. That's a long discussion. But Alex Bowman, $8,200, starting in 38th, coming out of the Hendrick Club. Ooh, he is ranked first. Look at these stats, though, for Alex Bowman. Out of the last 5 races, that bottom stat's not correct. Out of the last 5 races, 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s, 5 out of 5 top 20s, 8.6 average finish, finished 16th here in the spring. And his history here, I don't even know. That is, let's see what is Alex Bowman's history, because I'd like to know that. Since 2001, Daytona. Alex Bowman has 17 total starts, 2 top 5s, 6 top 10s, 11 top 20s, with a 17.5 average finish. So these are just some of my sheets that I have that go all into all those other sheets. So either way, still a 17.5 average finish for his 17 total starts at Daytona. Starting in 38th, I really, really like Alex Bowman. The problem is I think a lot of other people are probably going to like Alex Bowman. I think he probably will be one of the highest owned drivers. So if you're looking to be a little bit contrarian and different than the field, Alex Bowman may not be your guy, but I have a feeling that you probably want to have him in a decent amount of your lineups. I'll probably have him in, if I'm running 40 lineups, I'll probably have him in 18 of 40. So just under 50% of my lineups will probably have Alex Bowman. It's very, very rare that I go over the 50% mark on any driver. It's just if they just have a bad pit stop, they end up getting collected in somebody else's mess, whatever. Then if you're running 70% of your lineups, then 70% of your lineups are screwed. So that's why I don't go a full on send with somebody. I think the most I've ever had was I took Martin Truex Jr. in a race, and I think I had like 68%. And then there was Kyle Larson at Las Vegas. I think I had 60%. But those were just like they practiced heads over everybody else. Their history at the track was literally they had an average finish of like 2.3 or something. It was just like, okay, I'm sure why I'm turning the TV on Sunday to watch, because it was literally Kyle Larson leading every lap of the race. Things like that. But it's very, very rare. So I'll probably be at somewhere between 35 and 40% with Alex Bowman. Ross Chastain, $8,100, starting in the 9th position. Starting in the top 10. Ross is actually a pretty good little super speedway racer. He's a little better at Talladega than he is at Daytona, but either way, he has 1 top 10 and 3 top 20s in the last 5 races at Daytona, 18.4 average finish. He finished 12th here in the fall race last year. And looking at it, he does not have a top 5 ever at Daytona. But he consistently finishes decent. He's got a 20.3 average finish. So not awful, not great, but starting in 9th, it's just so hard to make up any DraftKings points with that number. Yeah, starting in 9th, even if you finish up in 3rd, it's 49.75 points. Once again, the guy starting in 30th finishes 14th with 5 fast laps, same amount of fast laps, 47.5. It's the risk to reward is very, very tough to start anybody in the top 10. It's just hard to do. Chase Briscoe in the number 19, taking over that ride from the not so retired, Martin Truex Jr. Congratulations to him getting into that 19 car. And he's starting off with a bang. He does not have to go to a rear. He did make some repairs to his car for a little bit of damage. It was just the grill on the front of the car got knocked in, and NASCAR did not deem that as making an advantage to the car. Why, I don't know. But either way, he still gets to start from the pole position. Even if he doesn't, I'm no interest in taking somebody in the pole position. I'm not interested in taking anybody in the top 10. But congratulations on Chase Briscoe getting the ride over Joe Gibbs Racing in the number 19 car. Let's see what he can do with that car this year. Martin Truex Jr. had many, many, many good years in that car. Hopefully Chase Briscoe can continue the trend. But his last 5 races at Daytona, 24.0 average finish. He finished 14th in the fall, and a 20.5 average finish over 8 total starts with only 1 top 5. So even starting in first, no real interest there. And the next in line at 7,900 is Austin Cindric, who won the Daytona 500 in 2022. But even if he goes out wins, I don't have any interest. I mean, let's take a look. Let's say he leads, I don't know, what's the most I could put in? 40 laps. Starts second, finishes first, leads 40 laps. And typically, if you're the leader, you don't have the fast lap. It's the guys in the middle of the pack that have the faster laps. It's still 58.25. So the guy starting in 30th, I mean, it's 11 points. Okay, that's pretty big. But what happens if the guy that starts in 30th finishes 5th? Well, he can even finish 10th. Not quite 10th. He needs to finish a little better. 8th? 9th. Yeah, the guy starting in 30th finishes 9th, literally will beat the lead. The guy who wins the race if he starts in second and leads 40 laps in points. That's why I keep hammering It's just so hard to take anybody in the top 10. So, I could say that till I'm blue in the face. My best friend, who I go to Martinsville every spring and fall, he still will put somebody starting in the top 10. I'm like, why are you doing that? He goes, because I want to. I'm like, you can. You live in America. Thank you for the contribution to DraftKings, because it's not going to work. And afterwards he goes, you're right. The only time it burned me was Austin Hill and the Xfinity Series at Atlanta, when Austin Hill literally led from the drop of the green to the checkered. But we'll talk about Atlanta next week. But Atlanta is also 260 laps, or 267 laps, compared to the 200 that we're going to race tomorrow. So there's an extra 67 laps at a quarter point per each lap. So it adds up. Todd Gilliland, 7,800. Congratulations. He moved from the 38 to the 34 because Michael McDowell moved from the 34 to the 71. Yeah, all of a sudden you're going to think you're watching a car tomorrow and be like, oh, that's so-and-so. And it's like, oh, no, that's not so-and-so. That's the other person who's now this person who's in that car, who's in that. It takes about 3 weeks to get everything straight. But either way, Todd Gilliland moved to the 34 car. His price tag is $7,800, starting in 14th. Does not have a top 5 here in 6 total starts. Doesn't have a top 10 or a top 20. He's got a 28.8 average finish. Starting in 14th? Yeah. I mean, he's right on the edge of you could potentially put him into some lineups, but his history here is not great. And, I mean, he's now Michael McDowell's old car. But he's also not Michael McDowell yet. I expect some decent things out of Todd Gilliland this year. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think it's going to start at Daytona. Watch him win the race. Maybe somebody should go place a bet for that. Speaking of people who have moved rides, Josh Berry moved from the 4 to the 21. And the 21 used to be Harrison Burton, is now in the Xfinity Series. So congratulations, Josh Berry. You took over for a guy that's no longer in the Cup Series. Either way, Josh Berry, well-deserved. The Wood brothers should be very happy to get this caliber of a driver, especially a short-track ace in Josh Berry. But we're at a Super Speedway, $7,700 for Josh. He has 3 total starts at Daytona with a 24.3 average finish and never finished in the top 20. Starting in 29th, this is the borderline where you can, okay, I'll take a couple shots on Josh Berry. I'm not going to go real heavy or deep on Josh. I think there are some other guys that are probably better suited. Now, Josh has had some really bad luck at Super Speedways when he's been running close to the front. So he and John Hunter Nemechek, I think it was the fall Daytona race, were in the top 5 when they tangled with each other. That's all it takes, though. They don't give the points for lap 110 out of 200. Either way. Josh Berry, $7,700. Congratulations on your ride. Starting in 29th, I don't mind that. It's not awful. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. at $7,500. Does have to drop to the rear for unapproved adjustments. Did not go to a backup car, but did make adjustments to his car after some issues in the dual race. But Ricky, in the last 5 races, does have 1 win, but that's really all he had because the rest of the time he finished outside the top 20. So he's got a 24.2 average finish, starting in 31st. He does have 2 wins, one of them being a Daytona 500. So Ricky's either checkers or wreckers at Daytona. There's not a whole lot in between. Or very little in between. I guess half the time he finishes in between because he's got 10 top 20s out of 21 total starts. But Ricky's a very, very aggressive super speedway racer. He and Brad Keselowski are probably the 2 most aggressive. And it either they win or they don't. And if they don't, it's never a good day. But starting in 31st, I'm definitely willing to take some shots on Ricky Stenhouse Jr. He comes in 12th on my ranking system. Wow, we're only at $7,400, and we've been going for a while. 54 minutes. Yeah, 41 drivers in a field is a huge number. I'm so glad we're typically run 36. But either way, Ty Gibbs, this is what is it now? His junior year. He got out of the sophomore slumps from last year, hopefully. Hopefully we'll see Ty Gibbs get a win this year. I think I liked what I saw out of Ty Gibbs' attitude, focus, not ruffling a whole lot of feathers last year. So I'm looking for big things for Ty Gibbs this year. Starting 23rd, it's not bad. It's not great. He does have to go to the rear for unadjusted repairs, but that's not really going to matter a whole lot. But he's got a 19th place average finish over the 5 races. He does have 1 top 5, 1 top 10, 3 top 20s. Well, almost half the time he's finishing in the top 20, starting in 23rd. I don't mind taking a couple shots on Ty Gibbs. I'm not sure he's going to be one of my higher-owned drivers, but I don't mind taking some shots there. Daniel Suarez, 7,200, starting in 36 because he did wreck in the dual race. Had some issues there, has to go to a backup car. He did win the Atlanta race last year, but beyond that, Daytona's not been real kind. I guess a third of the time he's finishing in the top 20. If you get a top 20 starting in 36, I mean, what does that give you? Start in 36th place, get a top 20. Let's give him 14th. And he only leads 1 lap. 53.5. So, I mean, that's a pretty big jump. I mean, for somebody who starts, let's go back to 10th, and you finish 5th, it's 46.5. Starting in 36 to 14th is a better day, at least in the DraftKings world. So, yeah, starting in 36, I definitely do not mind taking some shots on Daniel Suarez. His average finish is not great for Daytona, so buyer beware a little bit, and starting that far back, he definitely will probably get some ownership, along with Martin Truex Jr., who is driving a one-off in the number 56 car. I'm trying to remember who even owns that car. I can't even remember. Yeah, that's gonna bug me. Let's take a look. Always go to J-Ski and entry list. The 56 car, is Tricon. So Tricon Garage, which is actually Todd Gillen's dad, David Gillen, is one of the majority owners in Tricon Garage. They are the big Toyota truck owners. They're the ones who own Corey Haim's truck and own most of the Toyota trucks in the truck series. So, but either way, Martin Truex Jr., 7,200. He does have his the year that he won his championship and all the races that he won with a crew chief, Cole Pern, is back with Martin Truex Jr. for this one-off event. So, can Martin Truex Jr. get his first Daytona win or even Daytona 500 win? Maybe. Starting in 39th, he's going to probably be pretty heavily owned because he's got a 17.2 average finish over the last 5 races. I think I don't know. I like his starting spot. I think a lot of people are going to like his starting spot. I think he'll be pretty heavily owned. So he and Alex Bowman, I suspect, will be 2 of the highest owned drivers in the field. So buyer beware. But I think it's kind of a damn do, damn if you don't type situation with Martin Truex Jr. Michael McDowell, welcome to the 71 at Spire Motorsports, taking over for Zane Smith. And Zane Smith ended up going over to Front Row Motorsports in the 38th car. Everybody just flipped rides. That's pretty much what happened. But either way, Michael McDowell now in the 71 car for Spire. And he's $7,100. But he's starting 25th. He does have a Daytona 500 win, 2012. 2020 or 2021. I can't remember which year it was. One of those two. But the last Daytona race, he finished in 30th. He's got a 27.8 average finish in the last 5 races and a 21.3 average finish at Daytona. He was super fast in qualifying last year at Super Speedways and just never was able to get good finishes. Can Michael McDowell flip that on its head and start 25th and get a top 5? Maybe. I don't mind taking a little bit of shot on Michael McDowell. Justin Allgaier, welcome to the Cup Series, buddy. And his first, I guess he started 4 times at Daytona, but I think this is his first Daytona 500 start. For Junior Motorsports, this will be Junior Motorsports' first attempt at a Cup race at Daytona. So good luck to Justin Allgaier and Dale Jr. and Kelly Earnhardt. So excited to see what this 40 team can do. They had to race their way in to the Daytona 500. So pretty exciting to see Justin Allgaier make it after winning the Xfinity Championship last year. So not a whole lot of stats starting middle of the field, starting in 19th. I don't think I'll have a whole lot of shots on Justin, but it'll be exciting to watch to see how well he does tomorrow. And he's got a pretty cool sponsor with Traveler Whiskey. Austin Dillon, $6,900, starting in 15th. Right on that cut line for me. He does have 2 wins here at Daytona. One of them's a Daytona 500 win. But he's got a 25.2 average finish over the last 5 races here at Daytona and a 17.4 average finish out of 23 total starts. So not bad on his average starts, but recently it hasn't been great other than that 1 win. So starting 15th, right at that cut line, my computer algorithm really did not like the Austin Dillon play. He's ranked 38th. So I don't know how much ownership I will have with our 15th place starter, Austin Dillon. Noah Gragson, welcome to the 4. Once again, musical chairs or musical rides. And the 4 is that with front row also? Let's look. I think that's front row also. The 4 car is, Front Row Motorsports. So yeah, welcome to Front Row Motorsports with the 38, the 34. Does Front Row have 4 cars or 3 cars in this race? It's just 3 cars. Trackhouse has 1, 2, 3, 4 cars. Spire's got 1, 2. That's the other thing that you can definitely look at is putting team drivers together, because they will have a tendency to link up with each other and draft with each other. So that is another way to go about setting your lineups. You can also do all Fords, all Chevys, all Toyotas, because they will all help each other out. So those are different ways to go about building your lineups for tomorrow. Take all the worst 6 starting Fords and put them in a lineup. May not be the worst plan, but typically you'll get at least a Chevy or a Toyota that will kind of finish up in there. So, still might be enough though. But Noah Gragson, not awful at Daytona. 18.8 average finish over the last 5 races. Actually 4, because he missed the 2023 Daytona fall race because of saying naughty words online, or liking naughty things online, whatever that ended up being. It's not naughty the way you think it was. Socially naughty. But Noah Gragson starting in 32nd. I definitely like his starting spot. I think there's a decent amount of room here, and especially when we go back and we look at our little algorithm thing, starting in 32nd is not a bad thing. If getting up to 14th, you can still beat the guy starting in 10th if he finishes 5th. So I definitely like the starting spot with Noah Gragson. And he's got a decent average finish. he's won in the Xfinity Series at Daytona, just has not pulled it off. Why do I have nothing here for AJ Allmendinger? I know he's definitely raced at Daytona before. Wow, I screwed that up. Bad. AJ Allmendinger. He actually races fairly well at AJ Allmendinger. Let's look at his total stats. AJ Allmendinger. I can't even find him. Maybe that's why he's not on my list. Why is he not in here? Eric Jones, Zane Smith. Where is Michael McDowell, Todd Gillen? That's why he's not on my list, because I didn't even put him in here. Let's see. AJ Allmendinger. He has 18 total starts, 3 top 5s, 8 top 10s, 11 top 20s, and a 6.5 average finish out of 18 total starts. Yes, AJ is pretty darn good at Daytona. Let's look at the last 5 races. AJ Allmendinger, 3 total starts in the last 5 races, 13.7 average finish, 2 top 10s, 2 top 20s. So, sorry about the not completing my work assignment for this, but starting in 13th, there's just not a whole lot of room for DraftKings points starting in 13th. I could see potentially running maybe 2 out of 40 lineups, 3 out of 40 lineups, so definitely under 10% of AJ Allmendinger. I also don't know if I'd love putting him in there. So, I'd much prefer Justin Haley at $6,600, starting in the 35th position. Now he does have to go to a backup car because he had an incident in the dual race. He does have 1 win at Daytona in the Cup Series. He's got 2 wins in the Xfinity Series at Daytona. He's got 3 total. But his 9 total starts, he's got a 20.3 average finish. In the last 5 years, though, it's a 27.8 average finish. Now you have to remember he was racing with Colleague when Colleague first got started, and then right after that, he raced with Spire for a little bit. And Rick Ware for a little bit. So not the best of teams, but being with Spire now, it's a pretty solid organization who has a lot of resources. I expect much better things than 35th place finish. I will definitely have some ownership in Justin Haley. I could easily see running Justin Haley, Daniel Suarez, Alex Bowman, Brad Keselowski, those 4 right there. And you're not going to run into an issue of that. You don't need to spend all your money. There's plenty of salary cap room. So Carson Hocevar at $6,500, starting in 33rd. I mean, there's another one that you could easily put. And he's had some rough luck at Daytona. I think the Daytona 500 last year, I'm not sure he made it to lap 3 before he and somebody else got into a wreck with each other. It was like, wow, that was quick. 25.5 average finish. He finished 11th in the fall. So that tells you 2 races and he's got a 25.5 average finish, but last race was 11th. And the other race was like 39th or 40th. So, I mean, if he goes out and finishes 11th, starting 33rd, that's huge. So I definitely don't mind taking some Carson Hocevar. I think he just had a bad luck race in the Daytona 500 last year. Eric Jones, who was just lightning fast on Thursday night. So fast that I don't have any interest in running him for Sunday because he's starting in 4th. So even if he goes to win the race, unless he's going to lead, 90 laps or something, which doesn't happen at Daytona, I don't have any interest in Eric Jones. But he's got a 19.4 average finish over the last 5 races, and his total career, he does have 1 win at Daytona with a 21.3 average finish. Best of luck. Shane Van Gisbergen, SVG. Got 1 start. at Daytona in the Cup Series, and he finished 35th. He is starting 26th, and he is going to a backup car and going to the rear of the field. Last year in the Xfinity Series, he did super good because he was super patient, and he just let the carnage happen in front of him and stayed out of it, and then ended up having, I think, probably a top, I think it was like 13th average finish at all Super Speedways in the Xfinity Series. I don't know if he's going to do the same thing this year in the Cup Series. I think he's going to want to go race. But I mean, SVG is going to be worth his weight in gold when they get to the road courses. I mean, between he and AJ Allmendinger being on the same team, it's going to be like, okay, you get to win this one, I get to win that one. We'll both make the playoffs, and we'll get paid. Cole Custer, welcome back to the 41 car. And he's the standalone only driver at what is now the Haas factory team. They went from 4 drivers to 1 driver. And Cole Custer came up from the Xfinity Series to be that 1 driver. $6,200 starting in 30th, and does have to make repairs severe enough that he has to go to the back of the field, which really isn't that far. It's only 10 spots. It's probably not even that far. But either way, Cole Custer, he's got stats here too. I don't know what. Did I not put him in this either? Boy, I really did a lousy job since I had 2.5 months to get this right. Why isn't Cole Custer on here? We'll just put him over top of AJ. Cole Custer. He's got 6 total starts, 22nd place average finish, and 3 top 20s. But he has not raced in the Cup Series recently. So the line's probably correct. This one is not. But starting in 30th, I don't mind taking a couple of shots with Cole Custer. He's not going to have a whole lot of friends because he doesn't have any real true teammates. Now, he'll have some Ford drivers that might help him out, or he might be able to help out. I'm not sure they're going to push him to a win. But starting in 30th, all you got to do is get to a top 10. Can he keep his nose clean and keep it out of trouble? Maybe. Riley Herbst at 6,100. Riley Herbst might be the 3rd most aggressive driver in the field tomorrow. Next to Brad Keselowski and, who did I say before? Ricky Stenhouse. Riley Herbst might be the 3rd. Riley Herbst has always been a checkers of records, and it's me and me only, and I'm going to do whatever I can to win, and if I don't, I'm going to wreck it. He's got 3 total starts with a 24th place average finish. He did not race in the fall race last year. Starting in 24th, it's a coin flip on whether I like Riley Herbst or not. I don't think I like the Riley Herbst play, just to be perfectly honest. But he is racing with the 2311 group this year. He is the 3rd driver in that stable of cars. Driving a Toyota. I mean, if he gets if he just keeps his nose clean and behaves, he can get himself, maybe 10th. I don't think it's going to be better than that. But I'm not saying it's a full-on fade, but I'm also not real super excited about having him. Helio Castronovas. Indy 500 winner. Multi-time Indy 500 winner. But he really struggled in the dual race, and he struggled for the most part in the ARCA race, but it's not hard to get a top 5 finish, and he finished 5th in that race after wrecking 3 total times in that race. I don't have a whole lot of hopes for Helio. It's going to be cool to see him in the race. I think this car is just going to be too much of a handful for him. I'm not expecting a whole lot. The only positive is he's starting 41st for DraftKings purposes. I mean, maybe he sticks around long enough to make it to the end of the race and then ends up finishing 28th. But I'm not sure what does that look like? The problem is we never have 40 people in the 41 cars. So let's just go to 40th. And let's say he finishes 24th. even if he has 5 fast laps, it's only 36.5 points. He would have to finish reasonably, top 15, and I just don't think Helio gets to a top 15. So I think I will probably stay away from Helio. John Hunter Nemechek, 5,900, starting in the 18th position. In the last 2 out of 5 races at Daytona, he's got an 11th place finish, and he finished 15th. Both of those races were last year with the 42 car. So pretty good average finish. 1 top 10, 2 top 20s. He's got a 9.8 average total finish. I don't mind taking some shots on John Hunter Nemechek. This could be kind of a sneaky pick that might get overlooked a little bit. So Matt, Family Guy, if you happen to be watching, I like the John Hunter Nemechek as a sneaky pick starting in 18th. A lot of guys are going to go for the drivers that are starting in the 30s, or the people who don't know what the heck they're doing are going to go for the people starting in the top 10, and I think John Hunter Nemechek might just get overlooked. So I will probably have some of that. Zane Smith, 37th. What? All 3 starts for Zane Smith at Daytona have resulted in a 13th place average finish. Lucky number 13 is what I would have to say. But Zane Smith in the 38 car. So again, Zane Smith took over for Todd Gillen, who Todd Gillen took over for Michael McDowell, and Michael McDowell took over for Zane Smith. That's the 3-way swap that ended up happening there. But anyway, starting in 37th with an average of 13th place, yeah, I think I like the Zane Smith play all day long, starting in 37th. So definitely put him into the bucket of, need to run that. So I think it's Carson Hocevar, Zane Smith, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Brad Keselowski, Alex Bowman. Yeah, we'll get to the rest of them at the end of this thing. Corey LaJoie, welcome back for one race in the 01 car. And I don't even know who owns the 01 car. Rick Ware owns that car. So it's a one-off event for now for Corey LaJoie. And if he goes out and wins this thing, he's got an 18.8 average finish, but he's starting in 12th. I just don't have a whole lot of interest in taking a shot at Corey LaJoie. I always liked taking Corey LaJoie when he started 36th in these types of races, but starting in 12th is way too far up. Jimmy Johnson, $5,500, starting in 40th. We can't look at his total starts. He's got 40 total starts with 3 wins and 22 top 20s and a 19.0 average finish. It's pretty good stats. But this is a chance for Jimmy Johnson to continue to go race a few races, kind of. But really, since he's the owner of the team and he's now the majority owner of Legacy Motor Club, this is much more of a racing development venture, and he's even bluntly said that. Now, with it being Daytona, you could easily have the big one that Jimmy ends up missing somehow, and it takes out 20 cars, and Jimmy Johnson finishes 20th. Well, 40th, 20th is probably enough to get you at least in the top 15, if not the top 10 of DraftKings points. So will I have a little bit of ownership in Jimmy Johnson? Sure. Am I expecting a whole lot out of Jimmy Johnson tomorrow? No. He's also not racing for points or full time. Ty Dillon, 5,400. Kiddo, you outkick your coverage, and welcome to Colleague Racing in the number 10 car. Ty Dillon actually races Daytona fairly well, 22.5 average finish. For the equipment that he has been in over the last few years, that's pretty good finishes. But I don't. He's ranked 41st. He's ranked worse than Helio Castroneves. Starting in 7th is just way too far up for Ty Dillon. Cody Ware, 5,200, starting in 28th, but he does have to go to a backup. And actually, they're making unapproved adjustments. Still has to drop to the rear. Cody's actually got a pretty good average finish when we look at Daytona. He's very patient. He bides his time in the back, lets the carnage happen, and then when there's 15 laps to go, he puts himself into pretty good positions. He finished 9th in the fall race here last year. 3 total starts, he's got a 17th place average finish. 6 total starts, he's got a 19.2 average finish. You have to think, he's doing that in Rick Ware equipment, which is not the top-notch equipment by any means, but they make the most out of it, and Cody makes the most out of Daytona. I don't mind taking a couple shots with Cody Ware. Okay, let's take a look. I think the highest owned drivers in my book will be the Alex Bowman, Brad Keselowski, Christopher Bell, Martin Truex Jr., along with Daniel Suarez, Ryan Blaney, Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, Kyle Busch, Zane Smith, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Noah Gragson. And then you can look at any of these guys on the right side over here. Could easily be, this is going to be your group of 20, probably 20% owned or higher. Now, Jimmy Johnson will probably come in a little bit under. Yeah, I mean, I really honestly think the John Hunter Nemechek play could get very, very overlooked. So, anybody's looking for that sneaky pick, I think John Hunter Nemechek is my sneaky pick of the week. Once again, I will be staying away from pretty much everyone starting in the top 10, and I'll probably be staying away from Helio Castroneves. If that ends up burning me, it ends up burning me, but we don't need salary relief, and he's not really that cheap at $6,000. I mean, if you're looking for salary relief, you go with Cody Ware at $5,200, but you're not going to need to. Yeah, I mean, speaking of that, let's go back and look. That's one thing I did not bring up when we were looking at optimal lineups. If we look at last year's fall Daytona race, we still had $12,500 left. Daytona 500 from last year, we had $4,600 left. And typically most weeks you have somewhere between $200 and $500 left. So this is massive amounts of salary cap that's not being gotten to. Now the fall 2023, we had $600, but the Daytona 500 from 2023 was $13,000. I've seen Super Speedway races where we've had over $18,000 left of salary cap. So, with that being said, you do not need to worry about spending all of your salary cap. In fact, you probably want to stay away from spending most of your salary cap. But either way, that wraps this week's Racing in the Draft with your guy Mark. Welcome back. We've got 36 more weeks, including a All-Star week, which I can't remember if I did I don't think I do an All-Star race. Like, I didn't do a dual race, and I didn't do the Clash race. I typically do mostly just the points races. It's really the ones that have the most information. Like, I mean, 2 weeks ago when we had the Clash, it's the first time we've been to Bowman Gray. Now, it's very similar to the LA Coliseum, but it actually ran very differently. Now, the All-Star race this year will be the third time that we'll be at North Wilkesboro, so we've got a little bit more data and information there. But that track's just got repaved, and now it's going to have a year of wear on it. It's actually going to change quite a bit. And they always do some weird, funky stuff with the All-Star race. So I typically play, but I don't play very heavy, and I may or may not do content for it. But other than that, 36 weeks. I will be most likely in this chair. There are always a couple of weekends when I go to Martinsville and things like that that I try to do remote. But most 36 weeks, I'll be here. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. I appreciate everybody tuning in. If you happen to hit for a big win, definitely let me know. We've had some winners in the past that have hit some pretty good pots, including myself. But we've had some listeners and followers of the channel who have won first place in some pretty big tournaments. So if you happen to make it and win, let me know. I'd love to hear about it. And maybe we'll shout you out for next week. But if you've got any thoughts, questions, concerns, whatever, make sure you hit me up in the chat. I will keep an eye on it throughout the day tomorrow. Good luck. Hopefully everybody gets a win. Hopefully it's a great race. Nobody gets hurt. And have a great week. We'll see everyone next Saturday night for the Atlanta breakdown. Have a great week. Thanks. Bye.
Get a good deep breath. Get ready to roll here. Only about one thing tonight, getting the W, so got to be around the end to do that. Get ready to roll tonight, boys. Let's go have some fun.
Don't get me any more fired up than I already am.
All the way to the checker. You're fine. Nobody's got to run. Checker time, baby!
Hell yeah!
Proud of you there, Matt. Good job, pal. Thanks, man. Good job all day. Great work, my man. Great work.
Keep putting yourself in position, we'll win our share, right? We got one back today, brother. Good job.
Great job, guys. Excellent work, my man. Excellent work. Thank you.
Man, that's awesome. Set out with a goal, we got it here, bud. Thank you very much.
Really proud of you, man. Drove your butt off tonight. We had the fastest car here, bud.
Probably killed our deal there. Just feel like I gave one away. Yeah, boys! Way to rebound! Great job!
Great job, bud. Really good job. Appreciate you hanging in there with us all weekend.
What a weekend. Good job. Thank you.